what's going on to all my low-key MCU fans out there, and welcome back to my channel Movie Files. Elliot back again with my weekly recap, breakdown, and review of the latest episode of the Disney Plus series Loki. We're talking episode 3 today, which was titled Lamentis, which we see our two variant Lokis hiding in an apocalypse. And I just got done watching the episode about 20 minutes ago, and I briefly went online just to kind of see what people are thinking about the episode. And it seems like you guys are not the biggest fans of this episode, but hey, I think personally, and I'll get into my reasons why, I think this is one of the most important episodes of the show so far, and we really get to see what makes a Loki tick. We're going to break it all down here in this spoiler-free review, but before we do so, make sure you all are following me on all my other social media accounts. If you're new to the channel, welcome to the community. Consider subscribing to the channel, and while you're at it, make sure you hit that notification bell. That way you can get the alert for when I drop new content. If you all enjoy this review, well, make sure to give it a thumbs up, share the video. It helps out the channel a lot, but also appreciate the support. And in those comments below, again, it seems like so far I've seen words like this was a filler episode, this was pointless, this episode went nowhere. I have my opposite opinion about that, but let me know, what was it about this episode that didn't work for you if you didn't like it? What was it that did work for you? And more importantly, what are your thoughts, your theories, your predictions for the weeks ahead, especially after we get that big reveal about the timekeepers lying and keeping a secret from the TVA. Let's discuss it all in the comments below. So before I break down and recap the episode, just a quick little plug. If you all may or may not know, but every single Thursday we go live 7 p.m. Central Time here on this channel Movie Files. Myself, Amanda, and Chris, we dissect, we analyze, we break down the episode scene by scene. We have a great time discussing the episode with you all, but we always like to bring some really awesome guests to discuss the episode of Loki, and tomorrow's guest will be making a return. We have KB as well as Michael from Black Gay Comic Geek join the discussion. We're going to dive into their point of view of the show, what they like, what they didn't like, and of course their thoughts and theories and predictions for the weeks ahead. So again, that's tomorrow, 7 p.m. Central Time. Hope to see you all there. So just getting into just my general take on this episode. Again, just being about 20-25 minutes removed from the episode. I couldn't watch it this morning. I had to go to work, but I just got done watching it about a half an hour ago. And initially, I do have my criticism with some of the production, the pacing, and all that stuff. But as I looked at the episode, which by the way was about 42 minutes long, if you take away the credits, it was probably about 36 minutes long. So the shortest episode of the season so far, but the most important episode of the season so far. And I say that because just from a character standpoint, we learn more about our Loki. We learn what makes him tick. We learn about him being adopted, as we obviously knew, but how he felt about that. We learn about what love means to a Loki, but also Sylvie. We learn about her enchantment powers, about her claiming her own identity. So I love the character stuff. I love the chemistry. I love the acting, but also the reveal that we get in this episode. I can't underplay that reveal about the timekeepers and about the secrets about the TVA being time variants themselves. And what does their past look like? What does Mobius do? Did he drive a jet ski? Was he a jet ski instructor in his past? Was the hunters, were they good people? Were they bad people? Was Renslayer in a relationship with a particular time conqueror and Kang? I mean, this episode really does open up the doors for the possibilities. Again, I have my criticism with the production, but as a story stands, I don't feel like it was filler. I don't feel like it was a waste of time. I think this was a very important episode. But again, this is my thoughts, and we'll break it all down here in a second. But again, just let me know what you took away from this episode in the comment section. Let's have a discussion about it. So let's get into this recap. Again, our two variant Lokis hiding in this apocalypse as the episode opens up with Hunter C20 being enchanted by our Lady Loki, this female variant version of Loki, also known as Sylvie. She's using her magic, pulling to her memory about a time that she once lived, a time that she once experienced in her past life. Again, I'm assuming that their memories have been wiped, or who knows, maybe there is a Loki that the TVA has captured to enchant the whole TVA to forget their memories and just kind of forget things. So I don't know, that's just something I'm thinking about. But nonetheless, we see that she takes her back to these bars, these times that she remembers, being happy, having a good time. She likes margaritas, but she doesn't know who Sylvie is, which is very important because, again, Sylvie has a vendetta against the TVA. Maybe she was taken advantage of. Maybe her history, her timeline was disrupted, modified by the timekeepers. Only time will tell. But we see that this is how she ends up giving her the information. So I thought that was a really key scene to open up the episode. But as we transition to following up from the events of the last moment of last week's episode with Sylvie and Loki going into that time door, we see that she ultimately goes back to the TVA. And at this point, all the TVA and the Minutemen have left the facility. except Renslayer, who we'll talk about here in a second. But as we see Sylvie taking out the Minutemen pretty easily, she prunes some of them, she beats them up really easily. She can't use her magic, which is a good little callback to episode 1. It's consistency. They can't use magic in the TVA, but we see our boy Loki makes his way to the time door. He gets his daggers because last week he got his ass handed to him by Sylvie, but now he's prepared with his daggers. But we see them exchanging some blows. Loki has his moments using magic, using his daggers. Sylvie does her thing, but ultimately they're both interrupted because we see Renslayer makes her appearance in the episode, which, by the way, only 30 seconds for her. We didn't get any Hunter B-15. We don't get any Mobius in this episode. This is literally a Loki-centric episode. But she tells, Sylvie that go ahead and kill Loki because she wants to take her out, which, again, this speaks to that whole reveal later on. Is Renslayer being manipulated? Has Renslayer lost her memories, or is she about it? Is she part of this scheme to keep this secret that the Timekeepers have given to the TVA? Let me know your thoughts. Can we trust Renslayer? Is she being taken advantage of like everyone else in TVA, or was she someone that's part of this plan? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. But we see both Lokis escape, and this is where we get the most of the episode taking place, as we see that at this point they have the Minutemen's Tempad in their possession, and they're fighting over this device. And we see both Lokis using their magic. This was really cool. I will say I love that we got to see our version of Loki use magic that we've never really seen. Every now and then we see him using in the Thor movies or in the Avengers, but we really haven't seen the scope and the scale and the possibilities of what his magic can do. So I love that they really kind of focus on that in this episode. But as they're both kind of using their magic, we see that they realize that they're on this planet, Lamentis 1 in 2077, which, just kind of briefly looking online, it seems like this is a planet on the outskirts of the Kree, which we all remember. The Kree was introduced back in Captain Marvel as well as in the first Guardians film. So we got some more MCU world building in this show. But this is a very dangerous planet, ladies and gentlemen, because the moon ultimately crash lands on this planet, destroying everyone, and our Lokis have to get off this planet. But first, they have to use each other, they have to team up, they have to face each other in this apocalypse, figure out who they are, can they trust each other in the middle of this apocalypse, and they have to get this Tempad up and running. So I love this kind of the premise of the episode, that again, we have these, can we trust each other? I have to kill you. You're superior. You're not superior. You're a Loki. You're not a Loki. I love that they have to kind of face somewhat of their inner demons in this episode, all in mix, trying to survive this apocalypse. So it's a really kind of cool way to face your demons, face your past when the world's about to end. So I kind of love that kind of genesis and that kind of premise of this episode. But going back to the recap here, we see that that I was going to call it Enchantress. We see that Sylvie tries to enchant Loki, but she can't do so because, as Loki says, I'm strong-minded. You can't fool me, which speaks to, again, she does say that she can trick smart-minded or strong-minded people, but she wasn't able to enchant Loki. So is it showing that Lokis can't use their powers on one another? Is it true that he's just so strong-minded that she can't break into him? Let me know your thoughts on that. But we see that she tells Loki that she has been coming up with this plan for years that he disrupted, which again speaks to years for her, but was it just a matter of just like seconds or minutes in the TVA? Because we know time works differently in the TVA. But again, was it her plan? Was it, as some people has mentioned in the previous week when we did our live stream, that Loki, he was his whole thing in the Avengers film, he was the puppet, right? There was the puppet master being Thanos. Is there someone that's controlling Sylvie, that's making her go on this mission? Again, people are speculating, is it Kang the Conqueror? Is it the Timekeepers themselves? Let me know your thoughts on, is this something that Sylvie's doing on her own free will, or is she being manipulated by someone else? Let me know your thoughts on that. But nonetheless, they come up with the plan that they have to recharge this Tempad, and they're going around Lamentis to find a power source for they can survive and go back on this mission. She wants to finish the job she started. So as we see them looking for the power source, we see that Loki calls her the Variant, and that she does not like to go by the name of Loki, which speaks to the whole thing of, who is Sylvie? Is she Enchantress from the comics? Which, briefly, just a little history on that character. There are two different versions of Enchantress in the comics. One that's villainous, like a straight up villain to Thor. And there's another one that this is just a crazy kind of concept. But essentially in the Ragnarok comics, we have when everyone was destroyed and decimated from Asgard, their subconscious and their souls, their essence went to Earth. One of Loki's essence went to this woman by the name of Sylvie, who takes the memories of Loki, and she thinks that she is Loki. She thinks that she comes from Asgard. So is she Enchantress? Is she someone else entirely? It'll be very interesting to see what that reveal is. But she does not like to go by the name of Loki, but instead she gives herself an alias name of the name of Sylvie. So is that her real name from where she really comes from? Is it a name that she knows as Sylvie? Maybe she knows a real Enchantress. Only time will tell. But what I like about that moment is, and something I like about this episode in general, our characters are telling us who they really are. She doesn't like to go by that label of Loki. She likes to go by the name she identifies with, which speaks to a big moment with Loki coming out to be the bisexual, the first open bisexual in the MCU. So I love that the character kind of claims their name, and she doesn't like to go by Loki. She doesn't like to go by a variant. She goes by Sylvie. So I kind of like that self-discovery, identity kind of theme that we get within this episode. So see that Loki points out yet again that you're not a Loki. You're not, you don't do the things that I would do in situations like this. So again, it speaks to, I am not sure that this is a Loki from another timeline, from another multiverse. I think that this might be, if it's not Enchantress, it might be a amalgamation of Enchantress. I really can't wait to find out who Sylvie really is and what she means to the story. But nonetheless, they come across this woman in her kind of bunker area who shoots Sylvie because she goes in with brute force. We see Loki and doing his trickery ways with his hologram manipulation, but she knows it's not her husband. But I love that she calls them both devils, which calls back to episode 1 with the whole Mephisto painting and whatnot. But in this moment, we see again, this speaks to the character development in this episode. 2 different Lokis going about the same thing, how to manipulate this person. One goes in with brute force, one likes to manipulate the person in the head. But again, they both kind of see them using their powers. That doesn't work, which again speaks to the character development within this episode, which I really enjoy. But nonetheless, she does reveal that they can find where they ask them, where are all the people in town? She tells them they went to the Ark to escape this planet before it destroys. And they realize, okay, that seems like a place that we can recharge this Tempad. So we see both of them using their magic to get on the train, which I love this moment here. We see Loki taking on the costume of the guard, and he talks like Captain America to me in this moment, which is a callback to obviously the Avengers, as well as Thor, the Dark World. It just kind of reminded me of that. But nonetheless, we see them exchanging stories, which this is the moment here in the episode where I was liking their chemistry, but it wasn't really connecting to me quite yet, like Mobius and Loki did in the first 2 episodes. But it's in this moment when they're sitting down and having that conversation. And again, a middle of an apocalypse, they're having this conversation about exchanging stories about magic, how they use their magic. They go into a little bit more in depth about both being adopted. And Loki talks about his mom and what she meant to him and how she was purely just like a pure good person. And then he asks that to Sylvie, but she doesn't really have, which goes back to the Enchantress theory, she doesn't really have memories of her mom, which again, if this speaks to Enchantress, it's not her memories, it's Loki memories. So is she thinking about Loki's mom? Is she thinking about her own mom? Was Sylvie a TVA agent or a Minuteman whose memories were wiped out, but then someone gave her back her memories, which, might speak to her being a somewhat of a version of Loki or Enchantress. There's just so many theories and possibilities of who this person really is. But again, her saying that she doesn't really remember just speaks so much to, again, was she manipulated? Was her mind wiped by the timekeepers? And that might speak to why she wants to destroy them, because they manipulated her. So let me know your thoughts on that. But like I said, I really enjoy this moment. The wordplay between both of them, their chemistry was really great. That, to me, when they were on that train, that's when their chemistry really kind of stood out to me, and I really loved the back and forth between those 2 characters. But speaking of conversations, last week we spoke about the conversation about their belief systems. Mobius believing in TVA, Loki believing in Asgard and Odin and all that stuff from the Norse mythology. But we have a conversation about love, and we see Loki talking about, or to say Sylvie saying that love might be viewed as hate, and they discuss about their past loves, which this is a big moment for our Loki as he reveals that he is bisexual, which to my knowledge, this is the first openly bisexual character in the MCU, which even I know the director Kate spoke to. The reason she really wanted to bring her sensibilities to this show was because she wanted to show his true identity. And again, this episode is about identity, claiming yourself, claiming your identity. As Loki says, Sylvie says, is there a prince or princess there? He says, well, maybe there's a little bit of both. So I love that moment for Loki. I love that this phase 4 will open up the possibilities for people being represented on screen, bisexual, gay, however people identify with, being black, Puerto Rican, Asian. I love that this phase 4 will finally kind of open the doors for people really being able to see themselves on screen. So I kind of really love that moment. Again, it's the character moments that really sell me within this episode. But we see Sylvie ultimately falls asleep, only to find Loki singing and dancing. And I love this callback. This really reminded me of Thor, the first Thor, when he was drunk. Another one, he kind of has that moment, Loki, as he's drunk in this moment. But another kind of clumsy metaphor by Loki as he's describing love with the dagger, taken away, getting close, getting far away. Loki in those metaphors. I hope that's like a running joke throughout the rest of this series, where he tries to come up with some clever metaphors on the fly. I just kind of love that kind of running joke that we've gotten so far. But in the midst of all this, the guards figure out that they're not guards, that don't belong on the train. They both use their powers yet again, Loki using his magic and all that stuff, but they ultimately get kicked off the train, which leads us into Sylvie screaming out of frustration, learning that Loki has broken the Tempad, and this is where they kind of come up with the plan that they're going to have to hijack the Ark to get off this planet. But again, this kind of speaks to the different Lokis, how they handle perspective. Sylvie's kind of given up. She's like, we're going to die. But our Loki's just like, hey, they've never had us to help them out in the situation. So again, I love the different perspectives from these two characters and how they go about their mission. So we cut to the biggest moment of the episode as far as what it means for the story moving forward. So we see Sylvie reveals her enchantment powers to Loki, which I think is really cool to see Loki use enchantment somehow, some way in this season, because we find out that Sylvie, she's taught herself, which again, I don't know if she did teach herself. It's just a memory that she's really Enchantress, and she has the essence of, again, it would make sense for, obviously, they're not going to use the comic source from Ragnarok and apply it to the story, because obviously the origins have already been muffled up, but it will be really interesting if she's taken the identity of another Loki from maybe another timeline that we might meet in a future episode. But as she talks about how she enchants people, how it's easy to manipulate weak-minded people, but it's hard to manipulate strong-minded people, as she's referring to Hunter C20, and then she mentions that she had to go into her memories over 100 years ago to find this memory, which is so huge in this moment, because number one, she's been around for 100 plus years. So again, it speaks to time and space works so much differently on the TVA in regards to this was 100 years ago, but we know that can't make sense on the timeline. But again, they don't mess with time. They're outside of time and space. So that's a huge moment there. But more importantly, she tells, Loki says, well, the TVA believes, or that they told us, that the timekeepers created them. That is not the case. As Sylvie says, no, that's not true, because all of the TVA, all of the Minutemen are time variants themselves. So they are essentially the same people that Loki and Sylvie are. So are they good people? Are they bad people? Good intentions, bad intentions? Who has Mobius? Again, was Mobius a jet ski instructor in his past life? Was the Hunters good, bad people? Did they work with Kang the Conqueror? Which, speaking of Kang the Conqueror, Renslayer, was she in a relationship with him? And he is, again, this is just a theory that Kang the Conqueror is going to play some type of part in the show, is he's trying to use Sylvie to get his loved one out of the situation, reveal the truth, and get her back to him. Because again, if this is playing to the comics, they do have a relationship. So a lot given to us in this episode, guys, revealing that the TVA they had their own story. They once had their own free will, but their minds were wiped, and now they believe they were created by the timekeepers. So really big moment there. So many questions. Let's talk about it in the comments. But as we wrap up the episode, they approach this town that's obviously dealing with chaos and destruction. The apocalypse has begun. We see them running through the town, fighting different guards. We see more of Loki's magic. He even has the ability to control this building that was about to fall on them. Again, I love the magic that we see Loki use in this episode. But as we wrap up, none of that matters, because ultimately the Ark gets destroyed, meaning that they are stuck on this planet that is on the brink of destruction. So obviously they're going to make it out. I don't know how. I think some way, somehow, Mobius might come and scoop them up. Maybe Renslayer, maybe another Loki might save them. Who knows? But I really, again, My criticisms, I didn't really touch on in the breakdown, but I will say there was a little bit of pacing issue. The beginning of the episode was a little bit wonky. I don't know what it is about the green screen from even the Pompeii that we got last week. Episode 1, when he landed on, Mongolia, the background of the shots just look a little disjointed. It doesn't look like a Marvel type of, visual effects that we come to used to. So the visual effects of Lamentis looked a little bit off at times, and also just the score wasn't as impactful as last couple weeks score was. And, like I said, my criticisms really lie within the production of this episode, but my positives lie in the acting, the chemistry, the self-identity, self-discovery, Loki coming out as bisexual, Sylvie talking about her powers, her enchantments, what might lead to who she really might be, but also that reveal of the Timekeeper secrets of the TVA once being time variants themselves is huge. And I can't wait to discuss it more in tomorrow's live stream. Again, at 7 p.m. Central Time. Myself, Amanda, Chris, KB, and Michael will be going live. Hope you all can join. Again, let's talk about this episode in the comments. Let's talk about it tomorrow, but in particular in the comments now. Your pros, your cons, your thoughts, your theories for the weeks ahead, and let's discuss it in the comments. As always, make sure to like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell. That way you don't miss any of my other content. Hope you all enjoying your day. Hope you enjoyed this review, and we'll see you tomorrow discussing this episode live on Thursday here on this channel. Hope you all have a great day. See you on the next video.